You're watching Cable 2.
Hello, Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools community, and welcome to Let's Talk. I'm so excited about today's segment. It's a back-to-school segment that's going to focus on supports we provide to schools and some shifts we've made in those supports. And joining me today is our Deputy Superintendent and our area superintendents of two of our areas, the North and the South area. And so basically, we're going to spend a little bit of time together to better understand the area model, any shifts that we've made in that model, and what the role of area superintendent is all about in our school district. It's a very important role in supporting schools and in supporting our leaders, and so we're going to learn more about that today. So I'm going to start with our Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Fabi Williams. So hi, Fabi.
Hey.
Thanks for coming on today. Thanks to everybody for coming on today. And so I wanted to start by saying the area model is a model of how we are supporting schools on a daily basis and our principals. Can you tell me why it's valuable to be organized in a way that's north, south, east, west in an area model?
Absolutely. Well, as you know, in Winston-Salem, we are the fourth largest school district in North Carolina, spanning over 81 schools. And it's important that each of our schools gets some very differentiated but equitable support, right? We have several schools here that historically has been underperforming for various reasons, and being that we're going to a full model area where we have four area superintendents who can provide some specific and intentional support based on the specific needs of those schools. And also it's about ensuring that we have professionals who can advocate for those schools and principals and those communities as well. It's also important for the community to know that they have that go-to person that they can come to when they have various needs for their children.
Right, and I do know that different districts organize this in different ways. And so some districts, their area superintendents, also known as principal supervisors, the supervisors and coaches of our principals. Sometimes they're organized like in elementary school, in middle schools, and high schools. And so I know that you all make deliberate time for those levels to be together and learn from each other. But this area model of north, south, east, west is real intentional around being able to have, not only feeder patterns, because we do have feeder patterns, but we also have magnet schools that are not necessarily in feeder patterns.
Correct.
But it's also, it helps create community, and it helps our area superintendents to be able to be very responsive within that geographical area.
Correct.
So, so I know there's different ways that we're organized, and I know that we changed this way, I think it was about 4 years ago. It was right before I joined the team that we moved to this area model. And so I'm going to move then to those that kind of lead these areas. And again, we have Felicia Davis, who is our South Area Superintendent, and we have Dr. Quincy Williams, who is our North Area Superintendent. And we have made some changes to those. We've made changes to those schools because last year we had the Inspire 340 network. And so now we've moved all of our schools into these 4 areas, and in just a few minutes we'll hear more about how schools were placed and how they're being tiered. But right now I want to ask both of you a little bit about your work and how you're supporting schools. And so basically, what do you think is most important for people to know about the work that you do as area superintendents? I start with Felicia, and then if Quincy, if you want to respond.
Yeah, thank you. I think really the most important thing that we do and that we would want folks to know about is that we really coach and are thought partners to our principals, right? So our job really is to balance coaching and support and accountability all together so that we ensure that our leaders are giving the absolute best that they can to all of their stakeholders. And so that role of, yes, I'm their supervisor, but also being able to coach and guide and partner with them is critical. It's the only way that we can really help ensure that we've got our leaders who are focused on equity and doing the best for all of their stakeholders.
Absolutely. So I'm hearing a balance of support and accountability. So you're coaching. And what else do you want to add to that, Quincy?
Well said, Felicia. I would also add we're a liaison between central office and the schools as well. We hear and we see, we're out in the schools seeing what the schools need. We have an opportunity to be a voice and an advocate for our schools as well. based on the resources. All of our schools have different needs, as Dr. Fabi Williams said. And so when we're out and about and we're seeing things, we're an opportunity to be that voice for our schools and for our principals, to let central office and let different departments know what our schools are in need of too.
Yeah.
And so we're also liaison between the schools, central office, and the state as well, because sometimes we're out and we're in PD for the state and we're connecting with those who are leading at the DPI and state level. We get a chance to be able to connect with those who are leading that work and being able to make sure our schools are getting what they need from those as well.
Yeah, I love it. There is leadership is critical. Leadership matters. We all know that, whether it's a private company, whether it's a public school district, any kind of organization, leadership is critical. And so the fact that you all are dedicated, all of you have been principals, all of you know the work of principals, all of you have turned around schools that have been struggling with performance, all of those of you that are in the role. And we all know that leadership is critical to creating the kind of culture we want, and where all students are thriving and where staff thrives and can bring their best game, their best self every day. And so so your role is critical in this and in helping us reach all of the goals outlined in our strategic plan. And I hear you saying that you're here to coach principals, to be a thought partner to them, to push their thinking when necessary, and then to hold them accountable to the goals that they've set in their school improvement plan that we've set in our district strategic plan. But I love what you said, Quincy, too, about you also are there to you're removing any barriers that may help them, and you're kind of that liaison between the principal and district staff, and that might be related to anything from finances and needs to more support for resources to if there's allotment concerns about I don't have what I need to get this done, you all are that in between schools and districts. So again, it's a really big role, I must say.
Yeah. And I mean, like Quincy said, the work of the principal it's just such a hard job.
Yes.
And having to kind of fight red tape or bureaucracy, that's what we're here for, right? We really want to advocate, and if we can, intervene and help them get what they need, it's perfect.
And we appreciate that because central office only exists to support schools. We're nothing if we have no children and no teachers and no employees and staff in our school buildings. And so we shouldn't be making things more difficult for schools. We should be making it easier. And so thank you all for lifting that up and really trying to make it easier for schools to be to reach these rigorous goals that we've outlined. And I will say this, and so in that work with schools and our families are critical to this mix of really having successful schools. And so sometimes schools, parents and families feel that they've got a need that they want to address for their individual child or for a group of children, and they see that something is not right or that they have a new idea. And so can you talk, Fabi, I'm going to turn this question over to you and then you all can chime in, but how should parents go about if they've got a concern? What is the communication structure? And where does the area superintendent fit into that?
Well, again, communication is really important, particularly for our communities, for our parents. And so we have all of these structures in place. But I think the most important place that parents should start is with the school. Now, I get that sometimes, the situation may be where the parents may not feel comfortable speaking to anybody at the school. And because of that, we've listened to the parents, we've listened to the schools, and so we've actually created another position called our Director of School Relations. And that individual will be another step. Now, we do ask that you try the school first. And I'm not just saying the assistant principal. Every school has a principal, right? So as a parent, if you have not spoken directly with that principal, the head person in charge of that school, then I would say start there. And if your needs aren't being met, then absolutely you can call down to our office where our Director of School Relations will be the next step to answer or try to resolve your concerns. And if you feel that you still can't get your concerns answered, then the next step would be to the area superintendent. And then there's still yet another layer. If you still feel that your needs, and we hope that by that time your needs should have been met, right? But if for some reason it has not, then absolutely the area superintendent and myself, I'll jump in. You've always been available to parents, but parents should never feel the need to have to call the superintendent or the board to get issues concerned, because we have, we have the best staff available to meet their needs. We're here to serve them, the community, our students, and our schools.
Absolutely. And I do love having conversation with our parents and our teachers, and that's a goal of mine, is to be available and ready. But it definitely should not take coming to me to get something solved, and it doesn't have to do that. I think a lot of times parents just jump to that because that's what they think, or a staff member jumps to that. But I cannot reiterate enough that, let's try to solve problems with your school principal, that building principal. Like, we are all on the same page with wanting to do what's right for all kids. That's one of our core values, is to be student-centered. And so I think that we start there, and then I love that we have we've moved some things around so that we could create this director of school relations at the central office. So that would be the next line. Then you said the area soup, and then you, and then me. Now that doesn't mean people can't reach out to me. I meet people in the community all the time. But again, if you want problem solved quickly, because when I get a call, what do? I go back down the chain to who can solve it. And so it saves time to go directly to who can actually solve that problem. So I think that's important, that people start to learn that. And what we will do is we're going to make sure that we place on the district website and get it out to parents. That's one thing that came out in our parent advisory last week, is that parents aren't really sure who to call. So we're going to make it easy for them. We're going to place the area, who's in charge of the areas. We'll put the director of school relations number right there, and then the area superintendent and how to reach them right there through email or phone, whichever, the office phone. And then I think we'll just make it really user-friendly for our parents, because again, we want what's best for every student in our school district. And so we feel like, we're partners with our parents, we're partners with our educators, and we want them to know they're going to get their problems solved. So last question I have for all of you as we transition to our other two area superintendents, so that the public can also meet them, is what are you most excited about in 30 seconds about the 23-24 school year? Start with you.
We're starting this initiative where it's nothing new. It's to work around what we call deeper learning, right? And I am excited to see, when we walk into classrooms, to see how excited our kids are, because, with this new drive and initiative of ensuring that every student's needs is being met, that kids are excited about learning, right? That staff's excited about being there. So I'm excited to see kids raising their hands, or not raising their hands, just jump into conversations. We listen to some of our students talk about what's important to them in terms of a great learning environment. One student said, I want to be in a school where I can just speak about things and not have to worry about certain rules that prevents me from being able to express myself. Now, yes, there are always going to be rules, right? We need rules to live by, but in a learning environment, students should feel safe to make mistakes, right? That's what learning is all about. So I'm excited to see that. I'm looking forward to that work with teachers, principals, and our community.
Thank you. Felicia, what about you?
Well, that wasn't 30 seconds, but I was saying it because you stole part of my answer. I'm just excited about a new beginning. Just an opportunity to start fresh. What other career do you get to learn? Each year you learn more about what students' needs are, what leaders' needs are, and then you get to start fresh, right? So I'm just very excited about the start of a new year and the opportunities that are there for our kids and for our leaders, and just really coming off of that break, being focused again about how we can best serve our stakeholders. I'm just very excited about a new beginning.
All right, and last but not least, Quincy?
Both that they've said, I agree with, in reference to the opportunity for us to do more in reference to instruction, and also just working with new leaders. But I'm excited because I've spent this summer working with our leaders and watching them prep and seeing their excitement. When you see leaders who are excited about a new year and what they're implementing, it makes you excited, right? I'm excited because we've seen teachers come back for PD, and they are walking in and they're excited. So I know if the leaders in the schools, the teachers, the staff are excited, our children are going to be excited. And whatever environment you set is what will be there. And so I'm looking forward to an opportunity to see our children come back, our most school-dependent children, back in our buildings and having a safe place to be.
Absolutely.
So
and I know yesterday we had early college, middle college back. I know you started your day out there yesterday.
Yes.
I got to go and I saw you. I was leaving, you were coming later in the day, and our students were really excited to be back, and the staff was. I saw one teacher in science was doing an experiment a first day to get the kids excited, and had like a flame like come off. I mean, it was an experiment, and I was like, don't try this at home. But it seemed like a lot of great energy.
Yes.
And so with that said, we are going to switch for a moment, and we are going to bring in 2 more area superintendents so that everyone can meet them, and those will be our area superintendents for the East and the West. So thank you again, Felicia and Quincy, for joining us. We're going to take a minute to switch out, and Fabi, you stay right where you are.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Why is my son having trouble in school?
Finding lowest airfare to Istanbul.
No, I'm tired of fighting with my son over his homework.
Home, walk, restaurant. Need a review?
No. He's smart, but his mind wanders.
7 wonders of the world.
Why don't you understand me?
I do. I was trying to show how Connor feels every day. Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
Welcome back to Let's Talk. Before the break, we were talking to Dr. Fabi Williams, who is our Deputy Superintendent, and 2 of our area superintendents from the North area and the South area. And those were Dr. Quincy Williams and Felicia Davis. And so I've got 2 more area superintendents for this next segment with me so that the public can see all of our leaders that are coaching and supporting our principals every day. And so we've got Carmen Concepcion. She is the area superintendent for the East area.
Yep.
And no, right? I got that right. Okay, good. And we have Dr. Jill Freeman, and she is the area superintendent for the West area. So we are going to continue this conversation. This is a back to school segment, so we're trying to inform the public about any shifts in structural shifts, in supports to school type of shifts, and so that's what this segment is about. So we've already started learning a little bit more about the role of area superintendent. We learned in the first segment about communication protocols, and like if parents have a concern or employees, like what is that chain, what is that, not, I hate to say chain of command, but it is, what does that look like so we can get problem solved quickly? So my next question is going to be to dig deeper into the role of area superintendent, and we have 2 more of you now to give your perspective on that. But if I were to shadow you for a day, and we'll start with Carmen, Jill, you can jump in, but if I were to shadow you for a day, what would I see? What would I see you doing? What would I see in general if I were to shadow you for a day?
So you would see me visiting schools, and so part of that could be first me meeting with the principal by themselves and debriefing about any issues that they're having, just touching base. And then we'd go on a walk around the school. And so we'd take a walk and go into classrooms. My favorite question to ask principals when we come out of the classes, tell me what you saw, right? So that I can hear from their perspective, and then I share my perspective. And so we look for different things. It depends on what it is that we're exactly concentrating on. If we're looking at standards alignment, if we're looking at student engagement. But basically we're looking for trends to see how I can best support the principals so they can best support the teachers, and in turn they can best support students.
I love it. And I hear a lot of support here. And so I know that in the last segment, both Felicia and Quincy talked about like this great balance of support and accountability. And so I hear a lot of support. I don't hear like a lot of here's what you're going to do, because if you had to do that, I mean, you would be the principal, I would assume. So you're doing a lot of support, a lot of coaching conversations, but at the end of the day then, if you are holding principals accountable to what we know are best practices, and to, and we'll talk in a minute, maybe even about what that would look like when it comes to some of our district initiatives, like when they're implementing the code and things like that. And so that accountability and support. But I love that we heard support. And so Jill, same thing on what would I see? Would I see the same things? Would I see anything different as I were to shadow you for a day?
Well, I think also the same. We try to stay aligned, but at the same time, each school is unique. And so I think we tailor our support to the needs of the school. But on any given day, again, we're visiting classrooms, we're just observing the whole climate and culture of the school. We may be involved in PLTs, we may be involved in some leadership meetings with the leadership team of the school, but really just a thought partner with the principal, giving them some feedback so that they can continue to build capacity of their folks, and we can continue to serve the students.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you heard both the area superintendents mention the same in terms of school visits. Well, that's intentional work, right? If you ask all of the area superintendents, they will tell you, because we've all as part of the work decided that we're going to dedicate certain number of days specifically just to be in schools to provide that support, and so that's what they do. So that consistency is intentional as they work with principals.
I love that, because you're talking, we have 81 schools, so we're a fairly large school district. In North Carolina, we are a large school district. And if you think about consistency, people talk a lot about consistency and that being important, and that's with everything with cleanliness of facilities, with implementation of curriculum, with implementation of our code. And so you all help with that consistency because you all are consistent. But what I love is there's consistency. So we have certain common expectations, and we have our promising practices, which we say these are best practices across all schools that you are coaching principals around. But then we also have the differentiated supports that you're describing, Jill, when we say that every school's different, the needs of every principal are different. A first-year principal may have different needs than a 10th-year principal. A principal that's in a school that's been underperforming may have different needs than another principal. And so I think that's important, but you know what I love about it, and it just clicked in my brain, it's similar to what we would expect of a principal with their teachers. Right. And so we're modeling that same expectation, like every classroom is different. A first-year teacher probably needs more support than a veteran, 12-year veteran who understands. And I think you all are modeling that, like there's gotta be consistency of expectations, but then there's gotta be differentiated supports. And so that is our approach to our schools. That should be our approach to teachers, from principals to teachers. That should be our approach from teachers to students. And so I think, but what I hear through all of this is this culture of coaching. And I love that. And I think we all need coaches. We all get better when we have coaches and thought partners in the work with us. And so thank you for sharing more about, if I were to jump in the car with you and shadow you in the field, what would I be seeing? And so this role, the role of principal supervisor, like I was a principal, long time ago. And so the role of we called my person at that time, I think was an area director, but the role has dramatically shifted. So when I was a principal, my area director did not address instruction. They really only came out if there was some kind of concern, and there weren't that many, because I believe I got to handle my stuff. And so it was a very different approach. Can you all describe, like, nationally, what has changed? What are the shifts that have changed, and how has that impacted our work in Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools?
Well, when you think about the role of a principal, a long time ago, it was more managerial, right? Like making sure the school is operating the way that it needs to, and that has shifted to be more instructional leader, and actually managerial and instructional leadership, right? So ours has as well, our shift has as well. And I think if you talk about being an area director, like in your district when you were a principal, I don't think I would have liked that job too much, right? The reason that I love this job is because it's based in a culture of coaching, yes. Right? It is managerial, supervisory, but it's also coaching. And we're really there to walk side by side with the principal. To make sure that they have any obstacles they have in their way. We try to be the liaison between the district offices and departments and the principal to get those things out of the way so they can do the work that they need to do. So that part is more managerial. But then it's that poolside walking, right, where we're doing walkthroughs, we're doing weekly data meetings with them, PLTs, as Jill was mentioning. And so it's very much a coaching partnership and a relationship. And so I think that that's probably my favorite part of this, is that it's the relationship building that we have with our principals, and I often tell them I'm a teacher. That's what I became, right? So when I was in the classroom, those were my students. I differentiated for them. I did what I needed to support yes. them, to grow the leaders in them. And then when I became a principal, my teachers were my classroom. So now I feel like my principals are my classroom, right? And yes. I have to do everything that I can do in order to support them to be successful, because that's what will bring success to everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything to add to that, Jill?
That was great. I just think we've moved away from sort of this role of compliance and a check off to a role of truly a thought partner. And coaching doesn't imply that you need to improve something necessarily. Even the best players on any team still have coaches.
Yes,
And so when we think about coaching, we think about just that thought partnership, like, bouncing ideas off one another, thinking strategically, looking at data together, and making decisions together. And I think we really try to position ourselves as a strong support for our principals, and they feel in a large district that they have support. And that's the beauty of the area model, is that within this large district, our 4 areas kind of make it feel smaller, and they have a support network that they can really lean upon.
Yeah.
I love what she said, that's so important, because a coach is not because you're in trouble.
Right.
A coach is because everybody should have a coach, right? Like Michael Jordan had a coach his entire
Yes.
life. Like, this is just the way that it should be. And so it's a positive thing, it's not a
Exactly.
negative thing.
Well, it's culture, we're trying to create this culture of coaching that is not a deficit coaching model, because we know that coaching is not about deficit. It's really about going from good to great. And I always say it's about going from, if you're already great, it's going to greater. And if you're greater, it's going to even greater than that. And so it's just this continuous, we're all in a continuous learning mode. There is nothing, none of us will ever be where a coach is not valuable to us. And so I think, your top CEOs, and we've talked about athletes, they all have coaches. Your top CEOs across the country have coaches, and they continue to work on their craft and their own leadership. And so I think I was just on the phone Sunday with my coach, and thank goodness I have that. It's a thought partner, someone to say what you're doing, and they can be very honest with you about, that will work, or have you thought about something else? And I know that's what you do with your principals. And so I know that this has been a national shift in what is the role of principal supervisor, but it really is a critical role in our district. And a lot of folks say, talk about accountability. So when we've got a very an amazing strategic plan, we're moving into year 4 of our strategic plan, and our 60th year as a school district, which is so exciting. And as we move in our strategic plan, we've got a few initiatives that are really critical. And one of those is the implementation of our Code of Character, Conduct, and Support. And so I think we rolled it out last year for the first year. We've got 81 schools. Of course, in a massive change effort, you're going to see different levels of implementation, and it's a continuous effort. But what's so important is that we stay the course. You don't just get frustrated because it's not 100% being implemented with consistency, but we continue to stay the course of developing people, of coaching people, and holding people accountable. Can you talk a little bit just about the accountability part of the role? Because I know there are a lot of people in the public that ask about that. So it is a fine balance. I always think about a balance. If you go like this to all support and no accountability, the scale tips. If you go like that, the other way is not as effective. So it's like really a true balance. Can you talk just a little bit about, let's just go with the code specifically, like when you are walking through schools, like what would be a level of accountability that you all would be using, or would I don't know if using is a word, but how would you hold principals accountable as we move into year 2? Principals and school teams accountable.
So one thing that I think about as you're talking about this is that phrase that we have in the district, a culture of high expectations and high accountability in a safe environment, in a nurturing environment, right? And that's so important. But that's down to the crux of the matter, right? Yes, we're walking with you, we're coaching you, but it also, there needs to be accountability. So let's say, for example, with the code, if I am looking through the data for a school, as we do together sometimes with the other area soups, and we see that there are a high number of out-of-school suspensions or an irregular amount with a particular student, then we'll dig into that to see where the problem is. Like, we're going to be holding everybody accountable to seeing, maybe reflecting on their practices. Was it needed? Do we need to do something else? What are the structures that need to be put in place? So when we see a pattern of something, looking at data just like we would for our students, then that's where we bring in the accountability and check.
Absolutely. Anything to add? It doesn't have to just be about the code, but just accountability in general.
Yeah, well, I think we're also just looking for trends, right? And we're looking for kind of areas where we could offer more support, or we could seek professional learning for certain areas. And so specific to the code, we're looking to move towards a more restorative sort of culture. And so when we're working with our principals, we are looking to make sure that they're working at the teacher level, that they're communicating with their community and helping everyone understand kind of this move towards a more restorative mindset.
Absolutely.
And accountability comes in lots of different shapes and sizes, but a lot of times for us it is a review of the data. And really asking questions and digging deeper and unpacking the data and unpacking what's happening in the school. And that's where the accountability comes in.
Absolutely.
And if I could throw in another one, school culture is probably one of the most important pieces to ensuring that students are successful in the school. What child wants to come into a school environment where he doesn't feel safe and comfortable and that the folks who are there want him there, right? So one of the things that we talked about in reference to not just the code, because the code is a guide, right? It kind of guides our practice. But we say that when a child enters a school, they should feel loved. So when I walk into schools with the area superintendents and when they walk with their principals, you want to see a welcoming environment, right? Where the teachers are happy to see the kids, hugging them. We talked to some other principals the other day who just says they have a culture of hugging in their schools, right? All of the kids get hugs, right? So we want to make sure that that's happening in every school. What we've seen since the implementation of our code is that we have seen pockets of excellence, right? And we should not see pockets of excellence because every single child in this district deserves to be in a school environment where he or she feels loved, regardless of whatever circumstances that they may come from, right?
Absolutely.
So part of this work, of course, is ensuring that there is consistency across every school in our district, 81 schools. The culture and climate is where people want to send their children want to be, and staff want to work.
Absolutely. And it goes back to the fact that the school principal really does has a key role in shaping that culture. And honestly, without strong leadership in a school, all the best plans laid out as a system are not going to really happen. I mean, that's why leadership's important, and that's why the role of area superintendent and coach and your role as their coach is so critical. So I'm so thankful for you all being here, and I'm going to ask you a question that I asked the other two as we close out. I already asked you, so you don't have to answer, Fabi, but Carmen and Jill, I would like you to, what are you most excited about as we start the 23-24 school year? So we'll go Carmen, and then we'll go Jill, and then after these two, we're going to take a quick break.
Okay. So I think that the thing I'm most excited about is to continue to see that growth and development of students, of teachers, of principals, and of myself, right? As we grow together as a group of area superintendents, as a group in central office, and as a district, I think that that's exciting, right? And when we talk about accountability, it's built into coaching, because coaching means that I'm going to check up and see if the action that you took before. And so it's that continuous growth, and we're getting better and better and better, and never settling. We don't ask for perfection, but we do ask for excellence.
Awesome. Thank you. Jill?
I think I'm so excited because I get to start the year. I joined the team, after the school year started. So just the whole opening of schools, I'm so excited to see the schools welcome back the kids. I think I've built really strong relationships with my principals, and I'm just excited to walk beside them and continue the great work. We have a lot of things happening in the district that are great. But I think we're in a great place and position to have a fantastic year.
Awesome. I can't wait to see all that we accomplish in 23-24. So thank you all for being here this morning, and we'll be back shortly. Thank you.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund Reading.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
Hello again, and welcome back to Let's Talk. I am now joined by two more members of our cabinet who are hugely important to the support we provide our schools every day. And so as a reminder, this segment has been about the systems of support for schools. And a lot of this has been on leadership. And so we started out with our deputy superintendent and our area superintendents, who, as you heard, are coaches, direct coaches of our principals. You heard a lot about that balance between the role of support and accountability and what that role looks like on a daily basis. We have two more important roles with us today, important people, and their roles are really critical to our system, and that is Dr. Tamisha Barnes-Jones. And you'll hear me maybe say TBJ during this, so just know that is because everybody calls her, she's known as TBJ. And she is our Assistant Superintendent of Talent Development and School Transformation. And you're gonna learn what that means in just a minute. And I also have Dr. Paula Wilkins, and she is our Chief Academic Officer. So we're gonna hear more from both of them about their role in providing supports to schools. So we're gonna start with Dr. Barnes-Jones, or TBJ. And last year, TBJ was in a role of, you were in a role of being the area superintendent of our Inspire 340 network. But we've made a shift in that to where now we have the 4 models. We have North, South, East, and West. I pulled you out to have you impact the entire system. You had a really clear strategy around school transformation, which is how we support schools that have been determined to be underperforming. And so you being pulled out, you're addressing system-wide leadership development and professional development across the system, and also our district strategy for removing underperforming schools, for like changing the narrative of our underperforming schools, because we know that we have amazing kids in all of our schools. So with that said, I'm gonna ask you the first question because I'm really excited about creating this division. And again, we did it not by adding another person, but by shifting and repurposing your role. And so now you're going to impact the entire system, and you're going to be working so in sync with our area superintendents. You work on that team, you're still on that team, and with Paula in instructional services. Like, you're going to be working across actually the entire system because leadership is critical everywhere. So I'm going to ask you the first question. Can you talk more specifically about the work you'll be leading in your division?
Thank you for that question. I'm very excited. So first of all, I'll be overseeing professional development for our district and the district's key talent development initiatives. That includes, we have the grant, the Wallace Foundation, the Wallace Equity Center Principal Initiative.
Yes.
So that includes working with that and leadership development. I will also be walking poolside with our area superintendents to support and provide cohesion and alignment for leadership development, working along with Dr. Wilkins to support professional development for our teachers, and then working across the divisions to ensure a comprehensive approach to supporting school transformation.
Absolutely, and you made me remember that one of the shifts in this was that we pulled out, so our professional development department, Dr. Lupton and all those, Heather Barksdale, the folks that support teacher development, they are now under your leadership. And so we're bringing all things professional development, and that's for teachers, classified employees, new teachers, veteran teachers, all central office leaders. It's the development of all people in our system. And one of the reasons that was important to me, by the way, is because we need to elevate that. Like, we all are in this continuous learning process and getting better and better every day at our leadership or at whatever our craft is. And so the work of PD needs to be elevated. It is so important. So number one, thank you for saying yes, because now all of these things fall under you. And that does include the Equity Center Principal Pipeline Initiative through Wallace. And so thank you for taking that on. And I'm gonna now move on to the work of transformation. And so PD talent development is one part of your division's work. And I love the fact that you talk about system-wide alignment. That is so important. Instead of these pockets of different things happening, how do we create this coherence? And so that's exciting. Now I want you to move to transformation. And you've worked for many years with transforming underperforming schools. You did it yourself as a principal, and now you've been leading that work in districts and most recently in our district. And so when you think about the district strategy, what will that look like when it's lived out next school year? Like, what will support truly look like to our schools where we want to really truly move the needle for them?
Right, that's a great question. So really it's about all of a shared vision of what we want for all of our schools, right? It's a vision for equity for all of our schools. That being said, we have to be intentional about how we allocate resources, how we support our schools, the targeted supports for our schools. And so I learned a lot working with Inspire 340 last year. We were able to really look at the impact of certain strategies for transformation. And so this is an opportunity to kind of scale up those strategies across our district. So it means all of the departments coming together to collaborate and problem solve and understand what each department needs to bring for each individual school to meet the individual school needs. So we understand that our communities all have various needs, and so having the Inspire schools go back into their areas, we're now able to target supports for specific communities. And so it's just about working together and collaborating. And when it's lived out, all of our schools are getting what they need. Students are getting what they need. Schools are off of state lists.
Yes.
And there's teachers and students are thriving.
Absolutely.
And as a collaboration to that, the tiered support menu that each department is providing to help our schools that have intensive needs and supplemental needs, so that we're working as divisions alongside Dr. Barnes-Jones to provide that to schools. I think that's critically important.
Because you know what, in large, you make me think about in large school districts, sometimes people can become siloed in their efforts. And so like when we think about school transformation, you cannot be siloed in those efforts. And so part of your role, from as I hear it, and as I know it needs to be, and I hear you saying, is that it's working across every division to make sure we all like live out when we say we want to provide equitable resourcing and equitable support to schools. It's living that out.
Absolutely.
And as we all know, like, equity means every school getting what they need to be successful, every student getting what he or she needs to be successful. And so I love that we've got a personnel that's going to ensure that happens as a system. And so can you say anything else about the tiering? So we have 81 schools. Can you describe like the tiering and maybe a few data points on how we came about that?
Absolutely. So we worked with our Department of Accountability and Continuous Improvement, and we looked at 3 different variables. So we looked at human resources variables that included like teacher attrition and vacancies trend data. We looked at student demographic variables, including where we had concentrations of poverty, ML, and our special population students. And then we looked at student performance. So we looked at our schools that have a trend of being like CSI, or so comprehensive support schools. And then we took those 3 metrics and we came up with a formula. Well, our accountability department had a methodology for ranking the schools, and the higher they ranked on those 3 variables, the more intensive supports they needed. And so that's how we ranked our schools.
That's good. And I know when you were over Inspire 340, there were schools not in your network that maybe had just as many, like if we would have ranked all of them, more would have fit within your network.
Absolutely. And so this strategy allows us to support more schools, because we had more than 15 schools who needed intensive support. So this, again, from an equity lens, is providing what each and every school needs for our students to thrive.
And so for our educators that are watching this, they'll understand the whole idea of MTSS, which is that tiered support for students. And so tier 1, everybody gets this same treatment.
Some universal supports.
Universal supports. Tier 2, you go up to more intensive supports. And then those schools in tier 3.
Right. So we go from targeted supports in our tier 2 to more intensive supports for our tier 3.
Tier 3. And so those teachers and other employees in those schools will feel a greater layer of support.
Absolutely.
And that every division has contributed to that menu of support. And so thank you for like holding us all accountable to, we've got to make sure we all follow through on what those supports look like as the school year gets started. So I'm excited for the public that may not understand MTSS. They might be thinking, what is the districts are full of acronyms, you know. But MTSS is a multi-system. Tell us what it means.
Multi-tiered system of support.
Multi-tiered system of support. And so that basically is how we approach our students, and then how we're going to approach support for our schools. And with the whole purpose of everyone being successful.
Absolutely.
Everyone thriving. And you said that so beautifully, TBJ. And so you talked about your work across all systems. When you think about PD, And I know, so PD, in some districts, it is in instructional services. In some district, it falls in HR. We have pulled it out, but we know you're going to be working hand in hand,
right? So right
with
together.
Paula,
Yep.
with HR, with every division, student services. And so as you think about the PD plan and this aligned PD plan, can you talk about how you're going to keep teacher voice, employee voice, and actual student needs at the forefront as you make those decisions about what we need for professional learning?
Right. So at this point, it's really about creating opportunities, intentional opportunities to listen to and speak to all of the stakeholders. And so as the summer winds down, I'll be diving into a PD needs assessment along with our Executive Director of Professional Learning. And that includes talking to various focus groups, leaders, teachers around what is needed. So again, monitoring the impact of the professional development that we then provide, and then creating a continuous cycle of improvement. So what's working, what's not working, continuing to have a two-way conversation with all of the folk who are impacted by our professional development.
I would just add to that, we also will look at classroom observation data to be able to make and have additional data for us to make those decisions about professional learning in alignment with our district goals, and of course with Portrait of a Graduate and our goal of deeper learning, so that those can be integrated into our big PD goals as a district, because we know, and I know you hadn't started talking about that yet, but it's a big goal for us, for us to have student ownership of learning, to do the thinking. And so we need to equip our adults with the tools and strategies to make that happen. And so transforming professional development to look more like what we want to see in classrooms is our goal, and working together, I know we'll definitely do that, and we've already started.
I love it. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to ask both of you, so be thinking, what are you most excited about this next school year? But you gave a perfect segue into deeper learning, because we are, our board recently adopted the North Carolina Portrait of a Graduate. Our Summer Leadership Institute this summer was Living Equity Out Loud through Deeper Learning. We just launched yesterday our Connected Learning Conference, where we're talking about deeper learning with teachers. Paula, can you, for the public, everyone that watches this, can you talk a little bit about what is deeper learning, what is this portrait, and what does this mean for our school district as we launch a new school year?
So I'll start off with the portrait. The portrait is our district North Star, and there are the state competencies or durable skills we want every student to graduate with. And so we talk a lot about assessment, but moving away from assessment, what is it that our community, that our state wants for every young person to know and be able to do and demonstrate? So to be effective communicators, to be collaborators, to be critical thinkers, to have empathy, right? Those are those soft skills, if you will, that are really important to life. And sometimes we don't intentionally teach those. And so we want to move into the direction to be able to intentionally use our lessons, use experiences, use opportunities to teach those to students. And so that leads to deeper learning, right? So those are the opportunities where students are working together to problem solve, to make a commitment, to take ownership, to say, this matters in the world, to become activists around making change in the world. And so those are the things, specifically using those mindsets and skills and the academic content that we want. That is deeper learning. And we want to make sure that our educators keep that at the forefront as they're doing instruction every day, along with standards, so that we can make that a reality for all of our students.
So I hear a lot about authentic engagement in our classrooms, and we've heard from students that is what they want. We've heard from parents and our advisory, can we not, have our kids so much like on a device, on Chromebooks, but can they get back to engaging in that really authentic learning? And I'll never forget, I've said this so many times, but last year we had a middle school student in our board forum say, can we get back to in-person learning? And we were in person, which that is like so like we are in person, and so they want to live out those skills. They want to live out communication and critical thinking and all that in their classrooms. And what we're telling teachers is, you know what? Let's not talk about the test. Let's start the year out like we're not preparing you for the EOG. We are preparing you for life. We are preparing you to be ready for so many other opportunities, and to connect with your learning, and to love learning, and to love school. And so we're not getting ready for a test. No, you'll take the test at the end, and because of this authentic engagement, and because you're coming to school every day because you love it, you will do well. And that is, I really want our educators to know that and to embrace that and go back to like why we all went into this in the first place. And it was true joy. I feel like, you know, sometimes there have been very unintended consequences when it comes to high stakes testing and all those things, and I don't think that was ever the intent, but that is what it's caused. So I love this idea of deeper learning. Our educators, our parents, everyone's going to hear about this more and more, but we're also not yet defining it and coming in with, you know, any kind of like, here's what we're looking for in the classroom. Can you talk more about how we're going to like uncover evidence of deeper learning with our teachers and with our leaders as the school year rolls out, and how we're going to keep student voice at the forefront?
So I call it a strategy of see the bright spots, right? So we have so many of these instances where deeper learning is happening, and so our goal is to capture it. So we do that through classroom visits, we do that through highlighting and sharing what's happening in teachers' classrooms. We're asking teachers to give us feedback on what we can do better to help grow and support them. So everything about how do we uplift student voice, what does that look like in a classroom, and what are some tools to facilitate that? We're making that the priority. So as a district, we've already been on a journey of personalized learning. And so we have a real cadre of teachers already doing this in their classrooms. And so a part of that is uplifting that and sharing some of those out, asking every principal to take ownership of finding it in your building. Share that with us. Give us those evidences and those artifacts so we can create repositories to keep learning together. And so we're calling it the Lean Into Learning strategy, right? And so what I think is beautiful about this process, and we've already started, we've already used our Teachers of the Year, we've used our leaders, we have a design team that's already giving us feedback and sharing out what's happening already, what is successful. And you build on that instead of saying we need to start over and retransform the whole system. We don't need to start over, we just need to uplift what's working.
Absolutely.
And so that's a huge part of this is, you know, that whole point of what you were just talking about, learner's mindset and personal responsibility. I think in the age of COVID, and those are two of the durable skills in the portrait, we've lost that with students. And we need to build their agency around that to say, I might not know what my job will look like in the future. I might not know what I want to major in college or career, but if I have skills, I can apply that to anything. And so that has to be our mission critical focus as a system.
Absolutely.
And I actually want to build on that, because as we're looking for the bright spots in teachers' classes, then we can also then take it to our principals and say, what were the leadership moves? Because we understand that leaders create the conditions for high quality teaching and learning. And so we can show what were the leadership moves in this building that created the conditions for this type of learning to occur. And when they unpack that and we have a criteria for success, then we can scale it across our district. I'm looking forward to finding the bright spots in teachers' classes and in schools and with leaders, because I think that's going to be super important.
I love it.
Transformational.
Absolutely.
I love it.
It's
And you know what?
transformational.
It's very different than we're going to get a group of people in a room to create a framework, define instructional excellence, and put it out there, and then this is what I love about this and our going into 23-24 school year is that this is about finding the bright spots.
Absolutely.
This is not a new initiative. We said at the CLC, we've said it all summer, this is not, deeper learning is not a new initiative. It's not one more thing. It is the thing.
Right.
It is the thing. And so I think I love it. So we're looking for bright spots. We're looking for what we can lift up as bright spots, and then together as a system, we will define that and take it to scale. And I'm excited because I don't think I've ever been in a district where nope, we don't have a new initiative, everyone. For all the out there, it's not a new initiative. It strictly is like we're going to capitalize on the greatness in our classrooms and work to take that to scale.
That's right.
And our kids are going to be so excited, and our families will be excited, and our educators will be excited on a daily basis. So let's not talk about EOG. Let's talk about
the first
deeper
175 days.
175 days. No, let's talk about deeper learning
That's right.
in our classrooms. And I have one last question, and then I'm going to have you both respond to what I mentioned before. And Paul, like when we think about another shift, because this whole segment has been about shifts that people can expect as we launch this new school year. And those are like structural shifts and systems of support shifts. And so one of those, the big ones in our instructional services, is kind of this merging together of our services we provide through exceptional education and general education, and making that more seamless. And I know we've already done a whole segment on inclusionary practices, but what is most critical for folks to know about kind of that coming together of general education, general ed services and our exceptional ed services?
I think the first idea in at a core is that students are all of our students. They're not special education students and regular education students. They are our students, and we want each of them to optimize their potential. And so we have to stop separating special education and general education. And so that's first. And so to do that, I think as a division and a system, we've looked at how do we merge and co-collaborate and do the work together so it doesn't seem siloed. I think in the viewpoints of many, special education has been about compliance and only meeting IEP goals. And that is one facet, right, based on special education services we provide, but it is about the service we provide to our students to help them meet their goals and their needs. And that has to be provided in a setting that allows them to thrive. It has to give them opportunities for interactions with multiple groups of people while they also work towards goals. I think one of the critical pieces that we're looking at different is how do we push in services versus pulling out when possible. We have to always look at the environment for students, and some students need a more restrictive environment. And when that's called for, we're gonna absolutely use our data and our families to make sure that that is the reality. But in places where students are on the general education standards and curriculum, they need to have access to the general education curriculum. And that has not been the tradition in our system. And so we are pushing for that change, and we're asking educators to do this together. We are already co-collaborating in schools with special education teachers and general education teachers to problem solve. This is not about our students being the problem. It is about our system needing an update, and that the educators must engage to be problem solvers to serve our students. And so that's what we're doing. We're doing that in the design of the division. And so one of the critical layers, instead of having someone just over exceptional children's services, we're having a senior executive director for instructional services that will work with both general education and special education. And so that's going to be critical to that merger for us to change the design and our service model for schools.
Absolutely, and those are symbolic moves too, like, because again, titles and the way people function can help us move toward what we're trying to achieve. And so everything we think about in central office and how we're organized to provide supports is really important. And that's what this segment has really been about. It's been about what are any shifts and changes we've made so that we can provide the best supports to our schools and be organized for success. And so I thank you both for joining. So we're going to close on what are you most excited about for the 23-24 school year, and we'll start with TBJ, then we'll go to Paula, and then we'll wrap up this segment.
Did you do yours? We're going to close
Oh
with
my
you.
gosh, no, I did not do mine, so we close with me. All right, so TBJ will start.
I'm excited by so many things, but I'm most excited about finding the bright spots, like really lifting up our leaders and our teachers who are already doing this great work. That's exciting to me. So being in those schools and being a part of lifting up where it's already happening in our district.
Awesome.
And I'm excited about the bright spots and from a systems level, but I would also add to the merging of our teams.
Yeah.
So really using the power of our teams to make an impact and ensure optimal support for our schools, because our students deserve it.
Yeah. And I'm excited about everything that everybody else is excited about. I do feel like, I'm going into my third year as superintendent of our school district, and I based on, parents and what they've said, and our kids, last year I was so excited about shadowing students and having my student advisory with 50 kids and having our board forums, like there were trends in what they're saying, and listening to the voice of our teachers, like there's such clarity on where we need to go next. And I think that's exciting as a systems level leader to see that clarity, and now it's about living out the supports that we need to provide to be the very best school system we can be for our kids. And I want our teachers to love what they do every day, and all of our employees to love what they do, and I want them to feel supported by our school district. I want them to feel loved by our school district, and I want our kids to feel loved by all of them and by our school district. And so I'm excited about this year and just like moving forward. And I can't wait to be in classrooms throughout the district on day one and throughout every week of this school year to see what deeper learning truly looks like for our kids. And so those are the shifts. I hope that this gave clarity to our viewers today, and those are both internal teachers and employees and leaders, and also all of our parents and community members. These are some shifts that you heard about today that we believe will help provide the very best systems of support for our schools. We hope you'd enjoy this segment, and let's all have a wonderful, wonderful 60th Back to School. Thank you so much for joining us.